Hey, how you doing? This is John, and welcome to John's Longbox. I'm here with Chris Dahl, as otherwise known as the Longbox Punk. So, I guess we're related somehow in an alternate dimension, right?
Right. This is the Longbox team up.
Oh, there you go. Longbox team up. Yes. 8:30, I have comic book team up, but who cares about that? This is Longbox team up.
Right. We're living in the now, man.
Yeah, we're living at 7 o'clock p.m. Forget about 8:30 p.m. That doesn't exist yet.
Right.
Morning Shark, how you doing? It's a new name. Cool. I love seeing new names in the chat. How you doing? So, we didn't talk that long ago, but we just frantically talked about, we got two similar interests, comic books and punk rock. So we just went berserkwitz. And first off, on the odd chance that Jimmy Palmiotti is seeing this, his White Castle, he lives in Florida where there are no White Castles. So just trying to tease him unmercifully.
There you go.
Where do you live?
So I'm in Ohio. I'm in the heart of it all here in the Midwest. So
I've been seeing a meme lately that Ohio doesn't exist. Does it?
I don't know what's going on with that. I keep seeing a ton of discourse on like threads about like Ohio threads and how like it just isn't real. And
right, yeah. I'm always behind the curve when it comes to memes. So
yeah, I just only learned about the stupid Hawk 2 lady.
I work at a construction site. Believe me,
I'm sure
found out about it within seconds of it happening. There's always a pervert checking out every hot girl, and it's funny. I don't know. Yeah, now there's rumors about the teacher that she's fired, but she wasn't a teacher. She was a bartender. I don't know. All I got to know is what I learned from the Hawk Tour girl is if somebody ever walks up to me with a cell phone and a microphone, say nothing.
Right.
Right. I fund my comic. That's it. But that won't go viral. Yeah. What is Ohio?
We're a lovely state that produces things like Cincinnati style chili, which really confuses out of towners because we say like, yeah, I had a 3-way with my mom last night. When we were done, it was hot outside, so we played some cornhole, and like that's a good old evening in Ohio. And it's great. We're, not all of us are the Buckeyes. I'm not a Buckeye at all. I don't care about Ohio State, the Ohio State University, mainly because I don't like the fans. I think OSU fans are jerks.
It's funny that you said that because there's a lot of like bands that I don't like because I don't like the fans.
Yeah. Fans ruin stuff. It's weird how people ruin things, and it's just the people.
I've been talking about this a lot lately. That
Black Keys, maybe.
My friend Jimmy and I, we love the Chili Peppers. The first 3 Red Hot Chili Peppers albums, I have such fondness for. Chili Peppers, Freaky Styley, and Uplift Mofo Party Plan. Mm-hmm. Love those records. And my friend Jimmy always wore a Red Hot Chili Peppers T-shirt. And when we went into 7-Eleven, ultimately we'd end up drunk, end up at 7-Eleven microwaving a burrito. And the guy used to be like, the Chili Peppers are here. You're the only people in the world that likes this band. You're the Chili Peppers. And then one day they were on MTV and it was over. That Give It Away album came out, produced by Rick Rubin. And I'm like, Jimmy took a little longer. I think he bought one more record. And I was like, I'm done. When I heard that Music Is My Airplane, I'm like, this band is garbage. I can't believe I ever liked them.
Completely different, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Devo was from Ohio, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep. The Pretenders are great. Yeah.
I love the Pretenders. I was just listening to the Pretenders and Devo today. Well, okay. We always end up talking about music. So I'm on a Patti Smith kick right now. I don't know what happened, but all of a sudden and I just assumed everybody in the world, even normies, knew who Patti Smith was. So when I posted rock and roll N-word on Twitter, people were like messaging me, dude, you can't say. I'm like, I'm not saying that. Patti Smith is saying that. It's a 40 song. Listen to the song and see what she's talking about before you. But I forgot. But I'm like, how do you not know this song? Like Saturday Night Live did a goof on it. SCTV did a goof on it. It was like big news, and it's the same album that has Because the Night, which is a top 40 hit. So I just figured everybody knew who Patti Smith was, and here I am trying to explain Patti Smith to people that, quite frankly, should know better.
Right. So listen, kid, here's a Spotify link to Patti Smith.
Right.
Just go educate yourself, please, and thank you.
Then I just bought a Patti Smith album. I have the first 3 albums on vinyl, and then I bought them on CD because I went through that CD phase where I like, oh
Yeah.
The CD quality is so much better. And
it's really nice and elegant. Yeah.
All you do is spend twice as much money on my record collection, and now I'm back to buying vinyl again because I guess I will always be a pretentious snob. Doesn't matter.
Right.
I try to be a man of the people, but I'm just pretentious.
Hey, you do what you got to do to survive. You know what I'm saying? Like, everybody's allowed to have their preferences, and if mine make me a snob, then I guess I'm a snob.
I love the Pretenders. Pretenders were one of the first non-classic rock bands that I got into.
Okay.
I really like Pretenders. Well, I like them all, but Pretenders too is so good.
Yeah.
And you ever just not listen to a band for so long, and then you play the album and you rediscover like a different song, my favorite Pretenders song has always been Kid.
Okay.
And then the ones that they play on the radio, like Middle of the Road and Mystery Achievement and things like that. And then oh God. The telephone call, the call.
Yeah.
God. Yeah. I was like, how did I forget this song? So good. So
good.
Marcus's sister went to Ohio University.
Yep. Good.
Oh, when you were talking about food, I was in Wisconsin and they were pushing the Chicago dogs on me. I'm like, why are people in Wisconsin pushing
Wisconsin?
Do you guys have that much of an identity crisis? You don't have a Wisconsin dog?
The thing is, like, so my wife and I were up in Milwaukee. She had a work conference up in Milwaukee. And so I went up. We made a long weekend out of hanging out because I had never been to the city before. And we were having brunch on Sunday morning at this diner that had been on Guy Fieri's Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives. So we had to wait, ended up sitting right at the bar area, which was super rad. But the couple next to us were from Chicago. Okay. And so they were talking to the waitress / bartender because they were doing both. And they were like, yeah, we drove up from Chicago this morning, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, but we're in Wisconsin. What do you do? What do you mean? They're like, well, it's either we drive an hour to come here or we sit in traffic for 45 minutes to pay $60 to park downtown Chicago to eat brunch.
Oh my God.
So it's just easier to come here. And I was like, oh my God, I don't know that I would want to live somewhere that I would have to do that.
It's funny that you say that because I grew up in Nassau County, Long Island, New York.
Okay, yeah.
And it was just infamous that whenever you had to go to the Department of Motor Vehicles, it's like you were just like, goodbye, everybody. Like, I'm not even joking. You'd be online for like eight hours.
What a mess.
And then they would tell you forgot something. So my father just said, I'm going to motor vehicles. And it's like, I got a full tank of gas. I'm like, what are you doing? He goes, I drive upstate. I'm like, what are you talking about? He goes, I either sit here for 8 hours or I drive 2 hours upstate, go to the motor vehicles. I'm out in 15 minutes, go to the diner and come home.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, wow.
Yeah. That's like next level life planning.
People are right. But, and then when I lived in Flushing, Queens, my wife and I would drive 40 minutes to Long Island movie theaters. Anytime we went to the movie theater, and people would be like, why? I'm like, because you take a bus or you drive and then you can't find a spot and you get a ticket and then it's crowded. It's the movie theaters in Queens are tiny and you're paying the same price. The popcorn is more expensive. So we would drive the 40 minutes because just waiting for the bus, getting on the bus, then standing and,
Yeah, you end up saving yourselves money by going further away.
Aggravation is worth it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I'm finding. Like, not that I by any means am identifying as like an old person, but as I've gotten out of my college age and I'm now like past my mid 30s, I am to a point now where it's like, I'm just going to pay a little bit more for convenience instead of like, I'm just going to buy the cheapest thing because that's what I can afford. And then in 3 months, I'm going to go back and buy the cheapest thing. Like now I'm like, I'll spend more and have a higher quality thing that lasts me 10 months instead of 2 every 6 months.
Yeah.
And it's weird how your perspective shifts after like going through college and eating nothing but, ramen and thinking that you're adding in different spices to make the flavors different. Cause I went through all the spice rack and I was like, oregano, I don't care. Whatever. I don't even know where this comes from.
I remember when I first moved to college, I got a pot, that you plugged in and boiled water, and it was like $15, and I got like a cube of ramen, like this big, and that was always like my backup food. Like I didn't touch it unless I had to, and it lasted me a long time. And I swore, I'm like, I'm never gonna eat ramen again. I'm never gonna eat ramen again. And then I met a group of guys in Queens, like, we got to go to a ramen place. I'm like, what are you talking about, a ramen place? I'm gonna go drive someplace in Brooklyn and spend money on freaking ramen. And they were insistent. So I was like, all right, I'll go. And then I'm looking at the prices. It's like $30.
Yeah.
It was awesome. It was so awesome that everyone, like, I was working on the George Washington Bridge. Some days I would be crossing over the bridge. I'm like, I can make a right, and I could go to that ramen place in Brooklyn, and then hit up Peter Pan's Donuts. Did you see the Spider-Man multiverse movie?
Yeah.
You remember at the end he went in and Mary Jane was working at a donut place? That's Peter Pan's Donuts. That's my favorite donut place in the world.
That's awesome.
Oh, so and it's funny because I woke up my wife one Sunday, and she goes, Sunday's the one day a week she gets to sleep late.
Yeah.
She goes to a church on Saturdays.
Okay.
I woke her up. I'm like, we'll go into Brooklyn. We're gonna get donuts and ramen. And she's just like, are you out of your mind? I was like, no, let's go. The whole way there, it's like an hour and a half drive. The whole way there, she's just like, I can't believe we're driving for, and this is awesome. Yep. This is awesome. And then we get donuts. She's like, this is the best day. Can we get a whole dozen? So she got her dozen. I got my dozen. And yeah.
That's awesome.
How do you guys take your broccoli? I love broccoli. I don't know, just steamed. Steamed is the best.
See, you got to put it on a baking pan and throw it in the oven, turn on the broiler, get it nice and crispy, like season it a little bit beforehand.
Like raw, just like a fresh piece of broccoli.
Take fresh broccoli, rinse it off, cut it up, put it on a baking tray, throw it in the oven, turn on the broil, let it broil for like 5 minutes, pull it out. Perfect. It's crispy. Wow.
Never heard of it. I've seen it like fried with bacon before, but I just like boiled broccoli, take it out, little bit of butter, a little bit of salt. Yep. I don't know if he's teasing us that we're talking about boring stuff, but
no, that's one of my buddies that I told him that I was going to be on, and they were like, oh, well, we're definitely going to come on and ask how you take your broccoli. And I was like, that's the weirdest question ever.
Another funny thing is when we were living in Queens, we found out that like upstate New York, they were having a mac and cheese festival. And my wife's like, you want to go? She loves mac and cheese. It's a Canadian thing. The Canadians love their mac and cheese. So I was like, yeah, let's go. So then I ended up I had a D&D group, and for an old man, I had like 4 women in my D&D group, and they were like, yeah, let's go to the mac and cheese. So instead of playing D&D one day, we drove up to the mac and cheese, and it turned out to be, it was like outside, and it was just vendors. Like they have a restaurant, so this place made chili green mac and cheese. This place was like a barbecue place made mac and cheese, and this place, I don't know, whatever. So it was just like restaurants making their signature mac, and they would give you a little cup, and it was, you paid one price, so you just eat everything you want. And then there was a vegan mac and cheese place, and I'm like, oh, cool, it's mac and cheese. How bad can mac and cheese be? So
how bad can it be? Yeah.
So my wife and I walked in. And, because there was like a logic, there was like an order. You hit this booth, you hit this booth, you hit this booth. And the younger girls, they were all talking and going to the bathroom. So my wife and I, we mean business. We're getting our mac and cheese. Right. So we were ahead by a couple of booths. And we went to the vegan place. And my wife got it first. And she's too polite. She was like, and then she looked at me and she makes fun of me. She's just like, I'm like, oh, just like instantly in the garbage. And she said, I turned around and I gave them such a scornful look, and then just like, hey, to the next people, and the next people, they're just like, ah! So then we were like, let's stop. Tish and Donna are coming, and we just,
delightful.
And Donna's a little bit more polite. She was just like, and she just put it in her napkin. And Tish, she's from Chicago, which, New York Junior. She just was like, that was gross. And like, she like looked at, we all laughing. It was every person, it tasted like dirt. There's no other way to describe it.
Yeah.
Tasted, and I always said this, you want to be vegan. That's cool. But don't try to trick.
Yeah.
Like if you're vegan, just give up burgers.
Right.
Don't make a Frankenstein thing that's a burger, you know? Because
Yeah.
I do like those. They call them like a garden burger, which is like chopped vegetables, and
Mhm.
it looks like vegetables. I like that every once in a while, but it doesn't pretend to be a burger.
Right.
So how's that? That's a long question for baked broccoli.
There it is. There it
Yeah,
is. Yeah.
Shadow Pug's here. Mac and cheese. Hopefully, you're not lactose intolerant. No, no.
I used to be. My grandparents were like, no kid needs to be deprived of ice cream. So they just, every time we were with them, they just gave us ice cream. And eventually our bodies built up a tolerance to it. And so now I can, as long as it's in moderation, I can handle any dairy that I want. But yeah, don't mess with mac and cheese.
Yeah, mac and cheese. I had a guy Crom. He's and he hates just the idea of mac and cheese with diced up hot dogs. Just it makes you just say that he would have been puking right now.
See, that was our thing is we used to do the Kraft blue box mac and cheese, and then my mom would cut up hot dogs and
I love
put it
that.
in. Yeah,
That's such a comfort. Like I love
it is.
chicken noodle soup. I love cans of can of tuna fish sandwiches and mac and cheese hot dogs. That is such a comfort meal.
I thought I was the only person that ate that.
No. So we would talk about some music. We talked about stupid food. I don't think we even talked about comic books last time you were on. We got caught up in all of this fun, silly nonsense.
Yeah.
So, anything you're reading lately that's catching your eyes, whether it's indie or mainstream?
So let me look at my pile over there.
I forget you even have a comic.
I don't. No,
okay.
I just love comics. Like I have been reading them for 3+ decades. I have been collecting them forever. And he does make really good brock, though.
Describe your broccoli. There, you got me curious because broccoli's not like a fancy food. It's like a potato. You could do 80 billion things with a potato.
Yeah.
And everybody like green beans, broccoli.
I hope that we can all agree.
You can do a lot of stuff, but I didn't know you could do a lot of stuff with broccoli.
I mean, we're in Ohio, so like we can make casseroles out of anything. You can make a broccoli casserole.
Yes.
And you can include like hash browns with the broccoli and some like melted cheese and maybe some breadcrumbs on top to get the crispy on when it's baking. We can get really into our food here in Ohio.
I was a big Doctor Who fan. I watched all the original Doctor Who's. My favorite Doctor is still the first Doctor. I don't know, something about a cranky old guy yelling at everybody that I really like. My wife started Doctor Who with the reboot with the 9th Doctor, Eccleston, and I stopped watching Doctor Who with the female Doctor in the episode when the big fat black woman comes running out. She's not huffing and puffing, and she's like, "I'm the Doctor," and then you find out that she's the Doctor before all the other doctors, and they just it was woke, but what gets me more than anything else is when they have a disregard for continuity. Like I was just saying this last night, like me and Henry Cavill have a lot in common. Believe it or not, besides the looks and the physique, we like the lore. Like he liked the Witcher lore. I didn't know anything about the Witcher until the show came out, and I didn't like the show, but he likes all of that little niggling details of this, and I'm the same way with Tolkien. That's why this Rings of Power show bothers me. Like you can't just insert an Asian character. Like the genealogies of all of these people are in display and everything like that. I love all that memorizing. Like even when I was in Catholic school, memorizing the names of the prophets and the judges and stuff. I love that Doctor Who had a 60-year genealogy, and like I downloaded graphs of this doctor, this companion, and now we find out that none of that matters because this happened, and I'm done. Once they disrespect the source, because it's arrogance. It's this current writer doesn't care about all of these people that worked before. They're just going to lift their leg and pee all over it. So I'm done. I don't even know about this new doctor, and I'm weird. Once I say I don't like something, I don't read anything about it. I don't hate watch it. I don't talk about it. So everybody's talking about the Alkalite. I only know about the Alkalite because other people, but I haven't watched Star Wars since the first of the sequel movies. I hated the sequel movie so much that I just said I'm done. And I'm happy with 3 Star Wars movies because everybody forgets everybody hated the prequels too.
Yeah.
You know, and now retroactively everybody. So there's 3 Star Wars movies. You know,
That's it.
I would make an exception for a Rogue One. That was a bizarre, weird Star Wars esque movie that you know. But whatever. There's only one Star Wars. So there you go. That answers your Doctor Who.
There it is.
Are you Doctor Who?
So I used to watch the reruns on like local public access. I have no idea which Doctor it was. I'm assuming it was from like the late 70s, purely based on hairstyle. And it was just never my jam. But so I'm actually like ordained, and so I officiate weddings. And I wrote and did a wedding, Doctor Who themed. And they even had me dress as one of the doctors, like with the trench coat and the light khaki pants and the canvas shirt. And like I did I went all out for it.
A big scarf?
They had a scarf that I borrowed because I don't.
So you were the 4th Doctor, I guess. My wife just walked down the stairs. You just missed. I was telling the story of the vegetarian mac and cheese at the festival.
Vegan mac and cheese.
Yeah, the vegan.
Vegan. Right?
Yeah.
Like dirt.
It tasted like dirt.
I don't mind vegan stuff. It was just bad.
Like I said, she watched my face. I was like, ah! And I looked at them like, how dare you?
Yeah. Just take it personally, you know?
You're missing the huge secret truth revealed in the prequels. What prequels? Star Wars? I turned into Monty Python. The number of movies is 3, and 3 is the movies. There's not 4. 2 is not the number unless followed by 3. There's 3 Star Wars movies.
Unless you're talking about Jar Jar Binks being the strongest Jedi, because I just think that's I'm not a huge. I like Star Wars. My wife is bigger into it than I am, but I think that's
my wife is the only Jar Jar Binks fan,
I love Jar Jar.
and I love the idea that he's a Sith Lord.
Yeah.
And I'm so mad because I thought I figured everything out, that it was going to be revealed that Obi-Wan was really the father of Anakin. Because that makes so much sense if you watch those sequels, because, you know, when Padme in the second movie, Padme's all sexy and she's dressed and she goes, oh, your friend's coming. And it makes more sense. Her and Obi-Wan were closer in age. Anakin was a little kid last time she saw him. Yeah. And then when the little slug thing tried to assassinate her, Obi-Wan jumped out the window like a protective lover. You know what I mean? And then Anakin says, not the father of Anakin, the father of Luke. And then Anakin says, you betrayed me. You know what I mean? So I was like, it's going to be revealed that it's not Obi-Wan. You know, Luke, and then Obi-Wan goes to watch his kid. You know, and protect him on. But I know what's going on in the Alkalite. It means, I don't know. I am like, I put that red circle through things, and I don't go back. Marvel and DC, I stopped in 2015. You know, maybe there's good stuff now, but we broke up. You know, when you break up with your old girlfriend, I don't wish them harm, but I'm not calling them in the middle of the night either. You know what I mean? I moved on. I moved on from Star Wars. I moved on from Doctor Who. You know, Dungeons and Dragons. You know, they're ruining that. Have you seen the Mexican orcs? No. You know, oh God, Google it. In the new Dungeons and Dragons material, like the orcs are like picking not cotton, but they're picking like lettuce, and they're wearing sombreros because they were tired of the orcs being coded for black people. So now I guess the orcs are coded for Mexicans. There you go. There's a better move.
There it is. Yep.
Yeah, my Normie friend liked the Acolyte. Well, good. I mean, I'm also not going to be like one of these people. You hate it. I hate it. Therefore, you must hate it. So, you know, Warhammer. They mess with the lore. Everything I like, it's getting harder. Star Trek. You know, as far as I'm concerned, Star Trek ended when J.J. Abrams started. Then it became space adventure show, and it's not the Star Trek that I knew and love. So,
it's too bad that you broke up, because Strange New Worlds is incredible. It's very good.
Yeah, I've been hearing that's the good one.
It is, and because I tried to watch Discovery. And my rule of thumb is that I'll give anything 3 episodes, and if it still doesn't have me by the 3rd, I'm out. And I watched Discovery, and I got through 3 episodes, and I was just like, I just don't care about any of these characters. I don't. This isn't my jam. So okay, at least I have Strange New Worlds. But
yeah, I mean, I watched the season and a half of Deep Space Nine and I can't stand it. I haven't watched Voyager yet because I'm trying to watch them in order, and I haven't watched Enterprise yet. But I love the original series and I love Next Generation. And so far, everybody says Deep Space Nine gets better. There's none of the characters are likable in the, everybody, that Quark is a lovable scamp. I'm just like, he sold weapons to terrorists who killed Federation officers, and it went unpunished.
right.
Yeah, I just can't like him. It's like, oh, you scamp. Osama bin Laden was a scamp too. Doctor Who is having its I'm of two opinions. I could sit here and rage at my childhood is being destroyed, or I could finally remember everything from my childhood and find out other stuff. Like, I still like Captain America. I still like the X-Men. They still exist. Captain Kirk still exists. So, maybe I'm being, I don't know, like an old man or whatever, but I have fond memories of these things. And I'm finding out that I liked all these Western comics from Marvel and DC, or mostly DC, that I didn't get as a kid. So there's still new stuff to find.
Yeah.
And then forget about the indie scene, like Horace H. Hoover. I've been getting like almost every day, much to my wife's chagrin, new comics are showing up from.
Yep, same. I have a stack of Kickstarters that have come in the last month.
What did I just drop? Oh.
I'm waiting to just go through a huge binge session. And
I got a pile of Kickstarter stuff, and then I got a pile of like back issue stuff.
Okay, yeah.
And I made a pledge to read more of the Kickstarter stuff or crowdfunding stuff first. Like this hasn't stopped. I'm still grabbing now the alternative stuff.
Yep.
I'm still okay. Now I'm down to old stuff. So this all came this week.
Jeez.
So there's still plenty of stuff to enjoy.
Yeah.
And I'm reading old DC Comics, Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. It's fun.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just a fun time. I started getting into, I don't know why I never read it before, but like Luke Cage and Iron Fist.
Oh, yeah, that's fun.
Just like them as I'm like, how did I love both of these characters in like other iterations, but they're actual, like the two of them together series. How did I never read this before?
Yeah, back when Luke Cage was a tough guy you didn't want to mess with. Now he's just like, you go fight the bad guy, honey. I'm going to hold the baby.
Yeah.
They demasculized, Luke Cage. And Iron Fist, like they turned him into an Asian. It's like, dude, you forget, Daniel Rand, his secret power was the power of racism. He was the only white guy in an Asian town, and they beat him up to the point where he had to fight or they were going to kill him because they didn't like the fact that there was this white guy in a hidden Tibetan town.
Yeah.
So he was the odd man out. They beat him. He has like post-traumatic stress disorder. So to make Iron Fist an Asian, it defeats the whole purpose of it.
Yeah. It removes the reason for him having to get good at fighting.
Right.
And
was literally survival.
Yeah.
It was literally survival because he was the odd man out. Did you get up to the issue of Power Man Iron Fist where he fights Chemex, I think his name is, but he's a scientist and he has a gun that turns things into gold?
No, but that sounds awesome.
Yeah, I think it's before Iron Fist joins, so it's probably like around 12. But he has the power to turn things into gold. What does he do? He goes out and robs banks. I'm like, dude, just you know what you do? You go down to the dump and just get boxes of garbage and turn it into gold. You do that 3 times, you don't have to do anything.
Right.
So I always thought like, and then in a later issue of Iron Man, that guy was hired by Tony Stark to be like an engineer, which I thought was cool. But I always thought like that would be a cool character to not reimagine, but to play. Like, what's his motivations? He literally he's super intelligent. He could transform anything into gold, but he still wants to rob banks. So this is a guy who he wants attention. He's an attention seeker. He adrenaline junkie, things like that. I think that would be more of an interesting character.
Yeah.
But whatever. I'm babbling.
So I think
I got
let's see. I read the Corbin Luke Cage. I've not
That was just
read.
called Cage, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, then there was the newer one, and see, this is what I was googling. This series, I think it was only 4 issues, but it
When did that?
was. It's Jendi Tartakovsky. I probably butchered
Oh
that.
yeah, that's the guy that did. Why can't I think of what comic? Or was it? Ren and Stimpy?
Maybe that was. I mean, the artwork and stuff in it is very, like, it fits the mold of cartoon.
Yeah.
But I like, this is one of the first Cage books, admittedly, that I read. It was that
What
one.
year? Do you know what year that came out?
That was
Oh,
2016.
Dexter's Lab. Okay, that makes sense. Dexter's Lab. It was when?
Yeah, 2016.
Oh, okay. So that was just after I quit. So
It was part of the Marvel Now like revamp that they did, where they were just throwing everything against the wall and seeing what stuck. And so they were trying out all sorts of different creators on all sorts of different characters to see which ones were going to be successful. And that one, they ran it, and it didn't have enough of a following that it demanded more, so they just let it die.
Was it 4 issues? You said?
I think it was 4. Yeah, I it's in one of my long boxes. Yeah, that's the one. That's the name. Yeah, that's the one that I completely butchered.
I was gonna say I don't like Ren and Stimpy, but I do like Dexter's Lab. So Dexter's Lab was a clever cartoon.
Yeah.
Oh, he also did Samurai Jack. Okay, Samurai Jack was excellent too.
Yep.
Is he also doing Primal? Is it the same guy who's doing Primal? Because Primal's really good.
I don't know Primal.
Primal, it's a caveman, and like the first 6 or so episodes, there's like no dialogue. It's just a caveman, and he makes friends with a dinosaur, with like a T-Rex, and it's like caveman and a dinosaur and T-Rex just to have adventures.
Just hanging out. I love it.
Yeah, you know what I mean? There's monsters, not monsters, but like saber-tooths and other tribes. You know, Primal, the caveman, his wife and child get killed, and then the Tyrannosaurus Rex, it's a female, all of its children get killed, and they kind of bond over that, you know, and they become, it's really good, and it's no dialogue, you know, and you're like, my wife was watching one episode, she's like, oh no, you know what I mean, like, it's, and later seasons they meet like Romans and stuff, so it's not real.
Sure,
it's cartoon, but it's really good.
Is that like a streaming only show?
Yeah, I don't know what channel it's on. I just remember that I watched the first 6 episodes of it, and then when I went to go watch the 7th episode, I didn't have that channel anymore. So I don't know if it was like something I just forgot to pay, because I stopped paying for a lot of streaming services because I'm paying for it. And I barely watch any TV.
Got it.
And I think my wife watches the same 2 or 3 channels.
Yeah.
So we could do without a lot of channels.
Yeah, we unfortunately have gotten so ingrained in so many of the streaming services that now it's like, well, if like we're gonna wait until this season comes out, so if we cancel this one and then we can like pick that one, and it's too much logistically for me to keep up with. So
I keep threatening to do that. Like, we'll activate Netflix for 2 months, watch everything on Netflix that we want to watch, get rid of it, then go to Disney Plus, watch everything we want to watch on Disney Plus. But I never do. Yeah, I just know that there's a couple of smaller channels that I go to, like a Shudder. I started watching.
Oh yeah,
started watching some horror, and I think the free trial expired, and I was like, all right, I don't miss it. So
yeah,
I watched all the Friday 13th. I was off work. I had surgery a couple of months ago, and I just sit. And I'm like, I can't believe I thought these were scary. I was like laughing. You know,
they're amazing. I love horror is my like go-to movie genre.
Okay.
I'm waiting to activate my free trial of Shudder until like August, so that I have it August, September, October, because I watch nothing but scary movies.
Yeah, the horror season. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, okay, so you're a horror guy. Are you familiar with Wolf of Betsy and Brian Bow's comic?
Yeah. I think he actually just sent, he might have emailed me about coming on the show and was like, yeah, I can send you my
Oh, cool. Yeah, he's a good guy. He's been very helpful with my comic. Him and Fabrizio.
Awesome.
But everyone's like, he was talking about, and I got all like uppity, and I started talking horror with him. Boom, he knew everything and then some. Because my older brother's into horror movies the way I'm into comics.
Okay.
So I did see a lot of horror movies.
Yeah.
Kid, but I didn't retain all like who the cinematographer was and where this was shot,
Yeah.
you know. But Brian knows all of that. That'll be fun if you're into horror.
Yeah, I actually just spoke with, who did I just have on? Hojo. I just had Hojo on.
Hojo's a good guy too. Mythicals.
Yeah.
Back Mythicals #2.
Yep. Yeah, it's on Fund My Comic until the middle of July. So yeah, we were just live last night and we started talking horror, and then very quickly we're like, oh God, it's been 40 minutes and we're still not talking about your comic. Tell me about your comic.
What horror movies do you like? What would you recommend?
So I saying that I'm a horror fan, everybody's like, oh, so you like The Exorcist and Poltergeist and other classics. My like go-to favorite horror movie is The Descent.
Is that the girls who go splunking and they get lost? Yeah, Brian recommended that. I really like that movie.
I love it. Like everything is so intentional, and the monster reveal when they finally see him is just so creepy. Like it and just the for monster-phobic people,
you know what I mean? Like the monsters don't speak, so it's not like they taunt or anything. They're just feeding. It's a bunch of girls spelunkers, which is just a funny sentence to say, a bunch of girls spelunkers, and they get trapped in this like underground cave complex. And there's a degenerate branch of humanity that like they use clicks for sonar, that they're blind and they're bald, and they just eat. They're just, they're animalistic cannibal people.
Yep.
But there's interpersonal stories between them all. One of them's accusing the other one of, of doing this, and one of them thought that she took revenge and used the opportunity to kill. So you're getting caught up in that story.
Yeah,
I love that kind of stuff when there's like a story between the characters. Oh yeah, and there's a monster movie. Yeah, I thought that was a really good movie.
Yeah, that's my go-to. I love that one. There's a French movie called High Tension that is just exactly that. Like it is just high tension, and it's kind of a revenge killer story. And it's got a lot of like chasing and running. There's a giant, they use a cement saw, like the giant freaking blades that they use to cut grooves in like the street before they lay down there. She holds one of those, and the killer is trying to cut into somebody's car. And it's the scene that they use for the cover of the movie too. And it's like, it's just bananas how ridiculous that movie is, but it's so much fun. You can't take it too seriously, right? Like all the A24 like cinephiles that are writing on Letterboxd and whatever. I just like, if you use cinematography in your movie review, I just can't be friends with you, because you're so pretentious. And
like comic books, dude, if I wanted to talk about literature, I'd be talking about literature. Not that comic books aren't literature, but it's cheap, disposable entertainment, like horror movies. I mean, let's be realistic. We want to see blood, we want to see boobies, and we want to see like just something insane, nothing like an 80s horror movie, you know what I mean, to deliver all of that.
Oh yeah, just all Freddy Krueger is forever my favorite slasher, just because it's so over the top. Like that's what 80s ridiculous was.
where you're rooting for the bad guy.
Yeah, all the characters in the movie deserve to be murdered in really brutal and ridiculous ways.
Are you a board gamer at all?
Not as much as I would like to be.
Okay, I have a board game. It's over there. It's called a Final Girl.
Oh, I've heard of that one. Yeah,
it is awesome. I did a couple of series on it. I once in a while, like when I was off because of the surgery, I would do what I called my hands solo, because he only saw my hands playing a solo board game. But Final Girl is a solo only board game, so it's for one person. And the premise is you are the final girl in the horror movie. And it's a huge box. maybe I'll put pictures on it on Twitter later to show you, and I'll add you. But it's a huge box, and when you open it, it looks like video cassette tapes, and then all the stuff that you need to play all the games, like the basic. You need this for the base. It looks like a VCR. So you open that up, you take it out, and it's got all the pieces. And then the video cassettes, you open it up, and it's magnetic clasp, and this is the board, and then the monster.
Oh, so man, that's awesome.
So it's Otis. Instead of saying Jason, they say Otis at Camp Happy Trails. But you can mix it up. So you could have Dr. Frightmare, who's really Freddy Krueger, go to Camp Crystal Lake. Or you could have the Poltergeist go to the graveyards. You could have, and so the first season is all the slashers like Candyman, Freddy Krueger, I was about to say Oscar Myers, Mike Myers, all those guys with all of, and then there's different rules for each game. And
that's cool.
It is so much fun, so tense. I know Marcus was there with me one night. He popped into my chat helping me play. Oh, there you go. Zach had Final Girl's fun for streaming. You never know what will happen next. Yeah, Zach, were you watching me play it? I'm curious. You haven't.
Final Girl.
Oh, that's on. That's on YouTube. If you hit the @ and then M, then all the name in the chats will pop up. Took me a long time to figure, but not if you're on StreamYard. But Final Girl is so much fun. It's so much fun that I'll have friends come over and just teach them how to play, and then just like encourage them. Like watch with the. Oh man, it is so much. And I don't play. There's 3 seasons. The first season is like all slashers. The second season is like the lesser known horror, like Puppet Master and all that stuff. And then the third season seems to be like classics, like The Blob and Frankenstein and Dracula.
Awesome.
You know what I mean? But it's legally distinct.
Yeah. You got to watch it with the copyrights.
It's so much fun. I and my wife's like, you don't seem to play Final Girl that much. And I'm like, yeah, because I'm back at work and then I have all of these things scheduled and I don't have time. Because you got to set it up. You got to read the rules for each different scenario, and then you leave it out for a week because you're not going to beat it. If you could beat the solo game the first time you play, it's boring.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, I'll definitely find that because that sounds right up my like if my wife is doing something.
I mean, if you're ever interested, maybe we'll set it up. You know what I mean? And I'll put the big screen on, and me and you could coach each other play. No copyright or harm during the production. I never thought I would like a solo game because when I play board games, I want to. Half the fun is trash talking. Hey, Chris, you're a jerk. You ain't gonna beat me. I got Boardwalk over here. And and then you roll the dice and I rolled a 1 and
critical failure.
But the thing about Final Girl is I remember once I was literally on the phone with Brian Bow as I was playing it, describing everything that was going on. That's how excited I want to talk to people on it. So I said, I'm going to do it on my channel. But anyway, I'm babbling as per normal.
That is quite all right. That's, these are just conversations. That's kind of the point. Plus, now I have a video game or a board game that I can play by myself that I can enjoy and entertain myself with and let my wife do what she wants to do, which is probably watch Supernatural while I play the game.
Because my wife will sit there and watch TV while I'm playing Final Girl, and she'll be talking about a show and I'll be talking about my game, Yeah. And that counts as a night hanging out together as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. Yeah. You're together, you're talking, you're bonding, you're sharing experiences. It's the whole point of this thing we call life, John.
And if you are interested, I would recommend getting the whole series box because then it comes with extras and extra minis and stuff like that.
Okay.
Because you could just buy the individual scenarios, but then you're never going to get the extras.
Got it. Yeah, I now have some Googling to do.
Yeah. I just cost you about $120.
Awesome. My wife thanks you. Every time I get a new Kickstarter reward showing up at the house, she's like, seriously? And then finally, like I knew it was going to happen, but I backed a whole bunch of projects all at once. And then they all started showing up back to back to back. And so she was like, how much are you spending on Kickstarter? And I was like, okay.
This was 4 years ago. This finally showed up.
Right. Well, the thing is, these are staggered and I didn't expect them all you can get a single issue for like $7 to $10.
And these board games, like I'll drop like $120 on a game, and then board, like, you think comic books are late? You know, they're all complaining that the comic books, the board games are years late.
That's
years
crazy.
late. And then, you know, sometimes I forget, and some of them I don't even want anymore. You know,
Yeah.
Because I used to be into what they call campaign games.
Okay.
You know, so you play with the same group of people, and you go through like 15, 16 times you play. There's either chapter book or whatever. And I have 3 copies of Risk Legacy. It's a campaign. You're supposed to play 15 games, and then you see who the winner is after. But I played with my nieces and nephews. They all got married, went to college, moved around the country, you know. And then I had a group in Flushing that I became a horrible person because I didn't want to get this vaccine and wear masks, you know, and live in my 1-bedroom apartment for 2 years. I actually went outside. So I was deemed a very bad person.
Right. Yeah.
You know, so now I have copies of, you know, now I got another group out here, and I'm like, do I? It's a $56 game. Do I buy another copy? Because I want to play. I got this game Charterstone, and we're playing it Saturday with the same 6 people. This is like the closest to a game. But I got these campaign games from Kicks. They're still in the box. I'm actually thinking of just selling them.
Yeah.
Because I you know, it's hard enough just to get a game going, much less the same group of people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a so one of my favorite comic creators, James, you're right. I absolutely need a support group. Maybe I'll call you next week and we can talk. One of my favorite comic creators, Matt Kint, developed a board game based on one of his series, Mind Management, and it's like a hidden.
Yeah, people love that game.
Yeah, like it went gangbusters on Kickstarter, and I didn't back the game because I was like, I don't know that I have a crew big enough that would continually play, because it's not just like a setup for 2 hours and then you're done game. It's a ongoing thing that takes a while to play. And so he keeps releasing like, oh, here's another booster pack with like more original art and mini comics included and different pieces and like all this. And every release that he puts out, I'm like, man, I really want to get that game, but I don't know who I'm going to play with.
I'm actually wearing the shirt right now. Dice Tower. It's the #1 YouTube channel for board games. I went to their conventions 5 years in a row. Like, I went so often that I'm friends with people down in Florida. You know what I mean?
Okay. Yeah.
I met the guys from the Dice Tower. I've had them on my channel. You know, so they know who I am. I've had a couple of them one-on-one on my channel. They all love Mind Management, the game. They said it's their #1 hidden movement game.
That's what it is. Yeah, hidden movement,
meaning one person literally has a screen up like a dungeon, and they have a little miniature version of the board, and they're doing their movement on that board. And I think you do it with the dry erase, so you can't like, oh no, I wasn't there. You know what I mean? So and all the other players, like, so you're I haven't read the company, but you're the agency that's hunting them down, and you got to find. But they say it's just phenomenal. And after each game, depending, you change the state of the game. So next time you play, it has unique rules. You know, so that's called the legacy game.
Okay,
meaning it changes every time you play. And I think, I may be wrong, that after you're done playing that, like, you do everything, your copy of My Man is different than anybody else's copy in the world.
That's awesome.
You know? But the only thing that stops me from buying it is A, I'd have to get everything, and then B, I'd have to get the Mind Management comics, which I don't have.
Yeah, I have
all
of them in hardcover. And so when I backed the campaign, not because I wanted to get the game, but he did a custom deck of playing cards, and each card has a rule that enhances whatever game. It could be played with the Mind Management board game, but it also could be like if you're playing Rummy 500 and you put
so it's like a meta game.
Yeah, and so it's like it's its own like microcosm game for anything that you play cards with. And I was like, I'm a card shark. Like, I
really
have to own this deck of cards.
You play regular cards, right?
Yeah, I grew up playing like Rummy 500, War, Egyptian Rat Screw, like Double Solitaire. There's a name that my wife's cousin just said, like last time we were together and we were playing some like competitive joint solitaire type game. But they called it like Polish something. I don't remember, but
I'll
like,
call it Polish sausage until I know better.
yeah, perfect. Yeah. So we were playing Polish sausage, you know, and
I'll play Polish sausage with my brother-in-law.
careful if you come to Cincinnati, because then you'll end up getting 3 ways together. But yeah, so like we, you know, and we played like Skippo. I play Skippo a ton. Actually, the family that invented the card game Uno lived catty corner behind my grandparents.
Oh,
and
wow.
They knew that we were a card family. We used to play Pass the Ace when like the whole family was in Tripoli. And so they gave my grandparents like one of the original copies that they had printed. And the back of the cards aren't black. It's like a weird pea soup green. And they were like, it was cheaper to do that, but like, it'll be black eventually. So I have like one of those.
First printings Uno.
Yeah. You know, for all of the like super micro niche market card sharks like me that are out there that would appreciate it. That's my like claim to fame with cards is
I remember, I don't know what it was. It was my first year in college, and I just decided I was good at cards. Never playing before, never played poker. You know, in Albuquerque, where I went to school, there was casino. I realized I was not good at real. Right. It was just cheaper, just to like, you know what, here's some money, I'm going to go home. You know what I mean? Cheaper, faster. So I started playing board games. Well, I always grew up playing board games. You know, classic Parcheesi. And there was a game called Sorry.
Yep.
Which is a terrible game. Sorry, but I thought it was great.
And no one's ever sorry either. Like they do it while they laugh. At least our family did. Oh, sorry.
Risk. I still love Risk. I still have, like, I'm looking around because I got versions of Risk all over in my room. Awesome. I still love Risk, but now there's so many better games than Risk, and I'm really into tactical miniatures, but I will not get into Warhammer because it's just too expensive, and you have to paint the mini. Like if my friends coming over, they're not going to bust my chops about. But when I was living in college, we had this big house. It was my friend's grandmother's house that we rented. And the dining room, they just put this green felt and put it around the table, and that was there. So it was a huge dining room table, and the china cabinets just had Warhammer. There was no dishes or anything like that. And then on the other wall, they put up this big hex paper. I don't know where they got this hex. And they had these house rules that I thought it was so cool. Like each hex represented that table. So at the end of the game, whoever won would scout out, and he would get to draw like whatever their range was of the next. Like he would make up the terrain, and so they were exploring this planet that they were fighting, or maybe with planets, I don't even know. But I was just like, I want to play so bad. But these guys, I was in college, they just lived out there. They were spending all their money, and as far as I know, they're still living in that house playing Warhammer.
Mm-hmm. Now it's multiple walls covered in the hexes, not just the one.
They would wake up, their bong hits, and just paint.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I liked Magic, but I don't like that collectible aspect of, like, to play Magic, you have to buy the best cards.
Yeah.
So I'm not doing that. I'm pointing right here. There's a game called Sorcerer that is Magic for me, because if I bought a box of Sorcerer, it comes with like I don't know, like something like 36 different combinations of decks. I call it the noun, adjective, and the adverb. So it's like the elf who's dark from Moria, and and you just take you shuffle, and there you have your deck. But everything is complete. I don't have to chase. So me and you are playing. We grab a noun, a descriptor, and a location. We shuffle them together, and now we play. And it's Magic, but
that's cool.
Everything down.
That was always the barrier for me with Magic. Was like a buddy of mine in my neighborhood used to play and collect all the cards, and it was before they were even like super collectible. But he had like the pristine, he bought a ton of cards. And so all of his like 3 and 4 duplicate copies, he made an extra set for me to play. And we tried playing, and I was like, I get it, because I play RPGs like on my Sega Genesis, like Shining Force is my favorite video game RPG, and like Chrono Trigger and Final Fantasy. So I understand stats and how they work and interact with each other. And enhancers and different items that you can equip. But then we would play, and he always had, because I had the like second rate.
Yeah, the leftover cards.
I was like, dude, I'm never gonna I'm not gonna keep playing with you, man. Like, I don't have the money to go buy the good cards.
Right.
And if you're only
nor do you have the time to
crummy
research
ones,
to see how these cards all work together.
yeah.
Yeah, that's why I like Sorcerer, because when me and you sit down to play, we both have the same amount of prep time. We just shuffled, and by the sixth turn, I realized I shouldn't have wasted that card on this. But you're doing the same thing, unless we play it all the time.
Yeah,
but that would be kind of crummy. I play this game 30 times and then just crush you.
Right. Sounds
I remember I was
time
working at the bar in Albuquerque, and I was into Magic a lot at the time, and the bouncer was kind of into it, So we talked about it. He went out and bought a bunch of packs. So the bar was kind of slow. So we were building a deck. And the waitress, who was not interested in this, good looking waitress, she's like a mother of three.
Yeah.
And she's like, what are you doing? We're explaining Magic. She's like, oh, okay. So she went out and bought a bunch of Magic cards. So now we're building her a deck and we're trying to play. And she was just like, man, this was like $25 that I just threw into the garbage. Like, there's no way I could explain this game to this girl. She would, so we were like, you know what? Me and you were just going to split we bought her cards off for her. You know what I mean? It was just an act of mercy, but it was not, she's like, oh, cool. I want to be cool too.
Right.
You need this land. No, not that particular land, because that list land doesn't produce blue mana. You need blue mana. And then, and then you tap, and then
it's a very unique realm once you get into it, but it's hard for somebody that's not already into it to then join other people in the same thing. And to circle it way back, that's the beauty of comics, is like, there's a comic book for everybody. And there is, like, sure, everybody has their tribalism of like, oh, Marvel or DC or forget them both or whatever. But even within each publisher, I feel like the diversity of what's being put out, and I'll focus on indie comics because that's my jam. That's kind of the whole point of my show, Longbox Punk on YouTube, if you want to go follow it. And like, there's horror, there's slice of life, there's superhero. Like, your book is superhero and is just about a quality superhero. It's not an anti-hero like The Boys, but The Boys is out there if that's what you want.
Right.
And, there's no superheroes that, like, Mind Management isn't even about superheroes. It's about like a spy detective thriller with like mental psychic powers. And so like, that's completely different. And then, like, we're living in the best of times as comic fans in 2024, because there's just anything for anybody. And you can pick up just about any book at any point and read it and still enjoy it. And like, that's the beauty of comics, because there are comics out there for everybody.
Right. I just wish, because I'm making a comic book, you know what I mean? So I'm being a little, I don't know what the word is, but selfish, I guess, because Joe Average, some guy in Boston right now who doesn't watch my channel, doesn't know anything about me.
Yeah.
For him to and he's into comics, or he used to love comic books or whatever, and maybe he's in the same boat as me, Marvel and DC it's not for me anymore. And he's watching The Boys because he likes superheroes, but he's like, I just don't like these superheroes. I want my superheroes to be, and he would be the perfect guy for my comic. He's never going to read it because he's not going to just go like, you know what? I'm going to go on the internet and see if anybody's making a comic book about a good dad, a loving father. He's a good superhero. He's a good guy. That's it. I just wish there was some way to get that message. And if anybody, 53 people watching, if anybody knows how, yes, of course, I would like to sell him the book, but people hate when I say this. And I've been told not to say this, but I can't
say it.
I just hope to make my money back. You know what I mean? Because so I could fund the next comic, because I can't afford to keep laying out money. So if I can make my money back to make a fun comic book, to work with Renzo, and to get people to go like, oh wow, I like that I won. So I would love more people to read my comics, but this the way we're doing it. I don't know any other way to do it. I
Right,
never claimed to be a. I just like comics. I'm not a marketing genius. So if anybody knows, but I sometimes I just feel so sad. Like, oh man, I know that guy would like my comic. Because when I tell guys at work, construction, they're like, oh wow, I used to love comic. And it's funny because they're like, I'll buy a comic when it's here. I'm not, they don't want to go to a website and buy and wait for 4 months.
Yeah.
They have no concept of kickstarting or crowdfunding or Indiegogo or Fund My Comic. This is like they like that waitress at the bar, like red man or blue man or what are you talking about?
Right. I want in, but like just make it easy for me. Can I just
my foreman goes, I've been good to you. I better be in your comic book. So I named the secret identity of Boss Moxie, the bank robber, is him, and he loves it. I put a printout of but he still didn't buy the comic because he's not going online, registering, taking out he's like, when you got something in my hand, I'll buy it from you. And I understand that. So I would like to maybe 6 issues down the road, find a way to get it in comic book stores. And maybe
figure out the distribution piece of it.
Yeah, if anybody, I know RJ from Critical Blast can get you comics sold on Amazon, but I want to go to comic book stores. I want to see my comic book next to Green Lantern and the Fantastic Four and Spider-Man.
Yeah, that's the dream.
Walk into a comic book. Oh, this looks good. The kid's like, screw this guy. This guy doesn't even kill his villains.
Right. What is he? Goody two shoes? Actually, yeah.
This guy's a Boy Scout. Also, keep in mind the comic is called Heroic Tales, so there are other superheroes.
Yeah.
The Patriarch is the flagship. He will be in but there will be a backup story with another superhero. Like next issue is Mary Sue. She's a Mary Sue. She's perfect. You know what I mean? She's not my self-insert, but she's goofing on the concept of Mary. And then issue 3 is going to have a street level super violent vigilante character. Not so much the boys, because he's not a superhero. He's just, to me, he's like kind of why, if there was a Punisher in real life, as much as we kind of root for the Punisher, you're going to be like, I hope he's not in my town. This hyper sense of justice could be dangerous.
Yeah. And so you said you're doing those as backup stories?
Well, not really. The first comic is 30 pages. And I have a 22 page, because comic books were 22 pages, 22 page Patriarch story. And then I have an 8 page villain story called Unheroic Tales, and it's the origin of a villain who will show up in a later issue. Matter of fact, he'll show up in issue 2, the Patriarch story, Lucius Kane, who is the mayor of Science City. I don't think it's not too much of a spoiler. The politicians are always bad guys. So he's the mayor and how his political career started. And then issue number 2 was going to be Mary Sue. And as I talked about that, I was getting messages. People like, but I like the Patriarch. And then I started realizing maybe I'm doing a Richard C. Meyer thing, if you know what I'm talking about. Like, he liked Jawbreakers, and then for 5 years he didn't do Jawbreakers.
Yeah.
And then so I'm like, people, I'm getting fan art of the Patriarch. People tell me it's an important idea. They love the idea of a superhero father who's a good father who loves his kids. So I'm like, I love the character too. And so the Patriarch is always going to be. But when you flip the comic over, there's going to be 2 covers. Every issue is going to be a flip book.
Oh, cool. Okay, yeah.
So for those of you who don't know what a flip book is, here's Dungeons and Dragons, and then you flip it over, and it should have been another comic to make my point. But so each Renzo's going to do 2 covers for each issue. One's going to be the Patriarch story, and then the other one's going to be whoever the superhero is. Like, I got a couple of Mary Sue stories, but I also got. I'm not revealing the name of the street vigilante, because he was originally called the Raven, and then people kept telling me you can't use the Raven. You're gonna get in trouble. And there's Raven. Yeah, but it's different. And then I'm like, okay. So I changed his name to the Rook, and then Jeff Johns just came out with a comic book called the Rook. So I'm not telling anybody the name, because I don't want anybody stealing it. And Renzo made a 2-page spread. So we're already working on issue 2, and we're starting issue 3 already. Yeah, we have the 2-issue spread's going to be a centerfold advertisement, like an in-house ad for Heroic Tales number 3. Oh man, I wish I could show people. I wish I could, show people. he's called Street N-word now. Oh God, can you imagine?
Oh
Can
no.
you
Oh no.
I will say he's set in Brooklyn, and of course, Brooklyn is, more dangerous. Just like, you know, Devil's Kitchen is really an upscale place called Clinton Hill right now in Manhattan, and you can't afford to walk down there. But Daredevil is still beating up street walking crackheads because that's the way it is. So the Brooklyn, I'm sorry, the Bronx area that my character works in is still really, really bad. Hail Marcus, hey Ray, how you doing? So that's what I'm gonna do.
Cool.
The patriarch.
I love the flip.
Yeah, the flip book.
But
and then I always want to have 2 or 3 pages of like mock ads, to make it look like it's comic. So Matt Barr does a Sea Hippies ad. It looks like the Sea Monkeys.
Okay.
Brian Bau's doing a Fun Factory ad, and Fabrizio Aiello is doing a Hostess Cupcake ad.
That's awesome.
And again, you got me pontificating, but just today, Bill Williams, my letterer, who also has his own comic called Punchline. I love that freaking comic. Get that comic, guys. It's phenomenal. He just put me in touch with the pre-press guy who's just like, and I flat out asked him, I said, I didn't know pre-press was a stage. So what is pre-press? And he just sent me this eloquent explaining what he does and what else he can do. So he could do the indicia, he could do like the cover dress, but I already had it done, but it's good to know. Oh man. So everything's chugging along. The only setback is my colorist, Daniel De La Silva. His father just had a heart attack, and he's 5 pages short of finishing the comic. And I can't letter it I can letter it, but it can't be done until he hands in. So what am I going to do? Tell the guy, stop.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So we're still way ahead. It's 5 pages left to color, and we're done with the comic, because Bill letters the whole thing in a week. So there we go. That's
crazy.
It's what, Zach? Then what do you know about my comic book? And keep it to yourself, because Odin references. Oh, because there's a big Odin reference comic story coming up that people told me it'll either be the greatest comic ever or the biggest flop ever. So
you gotta bet on yourself, right?
Yeah, I can't wait to do that issue.
That's awesome.
And I almost just said something to spoil it.
That's how we do it, though. We lull you into just comforts, and we get you talking, and then you just spill secrets.
If anybody is so inclined, you could watch all my, especially on other channels. They get me to talk. They ask me questions. If you see all my appearances on other channels, you could get way too many spoilers about my comic.
Well, maybe I'll just have to flip the script then and have you on my show, and then I can have you tell me all about your book.
I haven't been on your channel yet.
I know.
Yeah, I'll come on your channel again. I just pontificated for 20 minutes. Tell me about your channel.
So my main focus is talking to indie comic creators about their books, their process, their influences specifically. Like there's a large, if you take 2 Venn diagrams, one is punk rock and one is comics, they overlap quite a bit in the indie scene. And so talking about that intersection is what I love to do. And so because I could talk about music, my degrees in broadcasting, so I've been doing it for 15 plus years. And so I've been reading comics for double that amount of time. So talking to creatives about like how they come up with ideas, where they find inspiration, what they encounter through the process. I've talked to writers, artists, letterers, colorists, people that are just one-man shows all over the board. I have an interview coming up that I just booked with an editor. And so I'm excited to talk to her to figure out like, well, how is that different? Because she's also now writing and about to kickstart a book. And so I'm curious to see like,
Ali saying,
no, this is with Lori Cunningham.
Okay.
LA Cunningham.
I booked with her today. She wanted to come back. So it's funny.
Oh, nice.
She was my second. Yeah.
It's a small world, man.
She's a lot of fun.
Cool. But yeah, so I'm curious, like anytime I have anybody on my show, that's what I like hearing about the book, but I like hearing more about how their experiences influence what they write or draw or create or why. And there's a lot of themes that I've noticed that I should probably like write down and do something with, because it just is so fascinating to me how similar and yet how different like everybody's story is. And so
Are
like
you thinking of making your own comic?
I can't draw to save my life.
Neither can
But I do like I have a ton of ideas and I've written a bunch down. I've written a 4-page script. I just haven't left my laptop with it because I know it's not good. I just don't know what I should do to make it better. And so part of me is like, well, I got it out of my system, so now I can just like put it in the back of like an archive folder somewhere and never look at it again.
4-page comic strip, like comic
Yeah.
script. Yeah,
Yep.
You could hire somebody to do 4 pages and make an ash can or print up 10 copies. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I've thought about that just to do like just to get it, because I would love like, because I'm a tech broadcasting person, I don't get the tangibility of like holding a thing that I created,
Yeah.
and I want that tangibility. Like I want to be able to
I
hold
can't
something.
wait to have my comic book in my hand.
You know what? Like it's just gonna be so freaking cool. And so like I want that experience and I want it to be a comic. I just like don't know if I should, push forward with an idea that I've got that like I have no idea how long it would end up being. I don't want to try and be like, I'm gonna write a 57-page epic. Like there's no way. I don't think I have it in me.
Well,
But
that's
like
what
just
I
get
mean.
one.
You can make it as big or as small as you want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like maybe even getting into an anthology or something like that. Like that's where I'm aiming, is just
Pete
an
Samedi has
open-
that. It came out on a Wednesday, and he's not taking submissions, but he only for that anthology book.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm learning, like in talking to other indie creators, I'm learning about other like people that they've worked with that were like, hey, yeah, I like, they got invited to partake in an anthology and now they're doing a one shot because of it. And so, something like that, like just getting to talk to the right people and then having help to flesh out a story with somebody that has done it, that can be like, no, you don't want to do this, like you actually want to do that. That's the like where I'm standing, looking over the edge, like, oh god, I
started making a comic book without talking to anybody. You know what I mean? I probably did it like I just had enthusiasm and that's it. And
you just jumped all in.
Yeah, I just jumped. It started. I wrote a script. I found an artist, asked him, and we just started drawing. And
That's
then
crazy to me.
And then I'm like, oh, I need a pre-press guy. Oh, how do I make a Fund My Comic campaign page?
Yeah.
Oh, wait a minute, I need logos. You know what I mean? So I again, this first issue is probably a lot longer and a lot more expensive than needed to be, because I hired a lot of people I shouldn't have hired. A lot of unreliable people, and then now I've sandpapered it down to issue 2. I think will be like half the price. Because I'm not going to make the same mistake. But that's one of the things I do is every time I talk to people, I ask them, like, I use these as resources.
Yeah.
Like a couple of people like, oh, you should talk to RJ from Critical Blast. So I had RJ from Critical Blast on my channel, and we talked about fulfillment services.
Yeah.
And then we talked about, lettering and editors and stuff. So, so when you're ready to make your comic, this whole indie scene is a resource. Talk to all of us. Not me yet. I still didn't fulfill me spectacularly, but I don't think so.
Yeah. No, I and like it's cool because that's the vibe that I get from everybody. Is like, hey, if you have questions, because usually it's either on air or off air that they're like, are you doing a thing? And I'm like, yeah, well, I'm like, meh. But all of them are like, hey, if you want to talk or have questions or whatever, like you've got my info, just hit me up. And
like Ray right here in the chat,
is,
he's got like he's got like a side business of helping all this. Everybody's helpful.
Cool.
Everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the beauty of indie comics, man. And like that's why I love the punk rock scene too, is you get in and you push people around in the pit, and then someone falls down and everybody stops to pick them up. Like that's how it should be.
I got to remember Discord Records, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the DIY, do it yourself.
Yep.
For those of you who don't know what we're talking about, this was like bands like Minor Threat and then later Fugazi and things like that. But if I remember correctly, they just chipped in and bought like a dilapidated house. And then
and then they just retrofitted it into a studio. Yeah.
Yeah. So like they lived in their studio and they had like for the longest time, their records were $5. Their singles were like $3 and their concerts were like $5. And of course, the world gets in the way and they're no longer fine. But that was all because they cut out everything. And it was all like spoken word. It was all, friends and friends and friends and friends. And I was so into Discord Records. I bought whether I liked the record or not was besides the point. I just wanted to support a bunch of kids. Then once I found out that like half their parents were like congressmen, senators, and you know what I mean? Oh, they all live in DC, that kind of like Kenny Inouye from the original Scream.
Yeah.
That had a, why can't I think of his name, from the Foo Fighters? I was like, his father is a senator Inouye from Alaska. You know what I mean? Like, all acting like they're all playing like poor people. Like Henry Rollins. Oh, you were from Georgetown. Your father was like an archaeologist or something. And
right.
But anyway,
another example of that is Two Tone Records from UK that was started by the Specials. Like, I'm a huge Two Tone ska fan, and like the more that I just started learning about Two Tone Records and how they started the label and everything, like it was a 19-year-old kid that was just like, we just kind of all banded together and paid the fees, and now we're a record label, and like they did the same thing.
It was Stuart Copeland's brother, right?
Yeah,
Stuart Copeland's brother. And here's the thing about him is, did you know that Copeland's father was one of the founding members of the CIA?
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so Stuart Copeland, and I think his name was Douglas Copeland. So Stuart Copeland, for those of you who don't know, became the drummer of the Police. And the only reason why he's the drummer is because nobody else could drum. Stuart Copeland could play any instrument. He's a phenomenal musician. But they grew up in Saudi Arabia because the father was a bigwig in the CIA. So they were American citizens who didn't step foot in America until they were like in their 25. That's why the Police are called the Police. Because his father was CIA. And of course the conspiracy ops, or Two Tone Records and the Police are all part of that Illuminati, whatever.
Yeah.
I love that. Like the Doors, Jim Morrison's father was a military admiral who was in charge of an aircraft carrier. That was the first one to go to when they escalated Vietnam, and then Jim Morrison's engineer was Paul Rothschild, Yeah. So like the Rothschilds, and what do? They got Jim Morrison to get these kids to take drugs to forget about the escalation of, rock and roll is a psyop.
Right. Nothing is real. Time is a construct.
Against the psyop, they killed him. And when Jim Morrison started to speak out against the psyop, or they didn't need him anymore because the war was over, they killed him.
Yep.
Yeah.
Stuff runs deep.
The next part of I love all this. I'm not saying it's true, but I love conspiracy theories. Yeah. And if you make comic books, there's nothing like a good conspiracy theory that's a good basis for a superhero adventure.
Right? Yeah. I think I brought up conspiracy theories with somebody on my channel, and I brought it up because I was like, I just think they're fascinating.
Yeah.
And he took it and ran with it like, no, this is like legit. Like this is real. And I was like, oh, I wasn't prepared for this to take this angle, but like, cool. Okay. No, like, tell me about it. I don't know anything about how any of I don't have time to
channel and bring up conspiracy theories. You think I talk a lot.
Add it to my list. I'll add it to the list.
It's funny because my family's like, oh, you're a conspiracy theorist. And I'm like, well, 6 out of 10 of them come true. And then you never apologize to me.
Yeah. Remember that time that I told you this thing was happening and you doubted me?
I got cousins that still won't talk to me. I'm just like, it only takes 2 seconds to say you were right. And then I'll talk to you again.
It's like that commercial of like, what's the hardest thing to say in the English language? And then they realize like, oh, you mean emotionally. I'm sorry. That's probably it. Yeah.
I only say I'm sorry to my wife because nobody else matters.
There it is. Yeah.
And then only when I mean it. And it's funny because sometimes you'd be like, why are you apologizing? Because I feel I have to apologize.
I feel like it's socially the right time to do that.
Well,
Yeah.
if I feel like it is, so she'll be like, what did you do? And I was like, oh, nothing.
Oh, you didn't know. I'm sorry for confusing you. That's what I was apologizing for the whole time.
No. Meanwhile, right, we're classic old school. We have screaming, yell at each other fights. And then like an hour later, like, pass the popcorn. Let's watch this. We're not one of these, repressed, pretend everything's perfect.
Yeah.
We'll fight in a restaurant and people like looking at us like, I don't want to be like them.
Right. See, we leave, we get in the car, and then we fight, and then then by the time we get home,
we're finishing this in public. But I have a comic book team up in 10 minutes, so I'm gonna close this down, fill up my coffee cup, get even more filled with caffeine, so I'll talk all over RJ and Fabrizio. Perfect. So anything you want to say?
Thanks for having me on again, John. I appreciate just being able to come on and hang out and having a super active chat. I think it's rad. So and keep reading comics.
Comics. Right. That's your YouTube channel, right? Longbox Comics.
Longbox Punk.
Longbox Punk. Jeez, Longbox Comics is me. What the hell am I supposed to? Longbox Punk. Check it out. Yeah. All right. But we're gonna go, guys. I gotta get prepared for a whole nother hour of me being insane. All right, bye-bye. Perfect.